Gather your crew and set sail with me. Silver in hand, provisions 2-3. Workers in place, time to prepare. Build up your strength with wisdom and care. The chieftain awaits with offerings in mind. Gold, iron, livestock, the best that you find. Raiders of the North Sea, glory awaits the brave and the bold. Raiders of the North Sea, plunder the fortresses, take all the gold. From harbors to outposts, we'll conquer them all. Monasteries yield into our battle call. Roll of the dice adds to our might. The Valkyrie watch over our fight. Armor and strength will carry you through. Victory points are waiting for you. Raiders of the North Sea, glory awaits the brave and the bold. Raiders of the North Sea, under the fortresses, take all the gold. Place your worker, take another. Always moving, always planning. One more raid before the end comes. Will your name be remembered? The game nears its end as fortresses fall. Valkyrie claim the warriors that crawl. Make your last offerings, count up your score. Vikings, remember the battles of yore. Raiders of the North Sea, glory awaits the brave and the bold. Raiders of the North Sea, plunder the fortresses, claim victory's goal. Raiders of the North Sea, Raiders of the North Sea.
Welcome back to another deep dive, listeners. Today we've got something a little, well, different.
Different good, I hope.
Oh, absolutely. It's a rule book.
A rule book, huh? Getting into some legal deep dives now.
Not quite. This is the rule book for the board game Raiders of the North Sea. You know, Vikings, raiding, plunder.
Ah, okay. I'm starting to see where this is going. Not just about learning the rules, but like what those rules tell us about the game's design, the choices it gives players.
Exactly. And maybe even, thinking about how some of those choices might connect to the whole Viking theme, right? Resource management, strategic thinking, a bit of risk-taking.
Sounds like a plan. Yeah. So, where do we start with this Raiders of the North Sea thing?
Well, the rulebook sets the scene pretty clearly. You're a Viking leader trying to prove yourself to impress the chieftain.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? By racking up those victory points, of course.
Makes sense. Classic board game goal.
Ah.
But how do you actually get those points? What are you doing in this Viking world?
Raiding, of course. But it's not just blindly attacking. There's a whole system of preparation and resource management. The game gives you this beautifully illustrated board representing the territory you're raiding in and a bunch of components to work with.
Components like what?
Well, you've got cards representing your crew, the townsfolk you recruit. Then there are ship cards offering tiles which look pretty interesting, and of course your workers. Each player gets a set in black, gray, and white. Those are key for taking actions. Oh, and we can't forget the resources.
Oh, yes, resources.
Mm-hmm.
What's a good Viking game without some good old-fashioned plunder?
Exactly. You'll be managing provisions, silver, gold, iron, even livestock. all drawn from this cool black bag. And then naturally, you've got score markers to keep track of who's winning the chieftain's favor.
Okay, I'm picturing all the pieces laid out. Now, how does it actually play? How do you, as a player, go about your Viking business?
One of the most fundamental things in Raiders of the North Sea is the worker placement. Each turn, you place one of your workers onto an action space, take that action, and then you pick up a different worker. You always start and end your turn with one worker in hand.
So there's this constant flow, this back and forth. Place one, pick up another. That's interesting. Adds layer of planning.
Yeah.
You can't just keep using the same worker over and over.
Right. You have to be strategic about which workers you use and when. Now, the rulebook explains that actions are divided into two main areas. You've got actions in the village, which is all about preparation, and then you've got actions in the settlements, which is where the raiding happens.
Village versus settlements. Sounds like a nice thematic division. Build up your strength at home, then head out to test it.
Exactly. So in the village, you're focused on getting ready for those raids, you're recruiting crew, gathering provisions, basically making sure you've got what you need to succeed out there.
Okay, walk me through the village a bit. What kind of places, what kind of buildings can you use your workers in?
Well, there's the gatehouse, which is where you go to draw new townsfolk cards, those potential crew members. The town hall is where you can play those crew cards for immediate effects. Then you've got the treasury, naturally, for getting your hands on some silver and gold.
Sounds essential. What else?
The barracks lets you increase your crew size. The armory is, for beefing up your defenses. The mill is crucial for getting provisions, sometimes gold too. Then there's the silversmith for, more silver. And last but not least, there's the longhouse, where you can trade livestock and use your plunder to make offerings to the chieftain.
Lots of options. I'm already seeing how those worker colors might matter, right? Like if I desperately need armor, but I only have a black worker available.
You might be out of luck. See, that's what I find fascinating. The rulebook specifies that certain buildings, like the armory and the longhouse, can only be used with gray or white workers. It adds this subtle layer of planning. You have to think ahead about what actions you might need and make sure you have the right worker available.
Yeah, I'm getting that. So you're prepping the village, getting your resources and crew in order. But the real meat of the game, the thing that drives those victory points, is raiding, right?
Absolutely. That's where you put all that preparation to the test. The rulebook lays out a variety of settlements you can target. Harbors, which are the easiest but offer the least rewards. Outposts and monasteries, which are more challenging but more lucrative. And then the big ones, the heavily guarded fortresses.
Okay, I'm imagining setting sail with my trusty crew, ready to plunder some unsuspecting, monasteries?
Could be. But before you set sail, you need to make sure you meet the requirements. You need a large enough crew, of course, enough provisions to sustain them on the journey. And for some of those richer targets, like monasteries and fortresses, you'll need to spend gold as well.
Okay, so there's a cost to entry. Not just anyone can waltz up to a fortress. And the worker colors come into play here too, right?
For most raids, yes. But those harbors, they're a bit different. They're always available, no matter what worker you have.
Interesting. So tactically, what's the advantage of hitting a harbor?
They might not offer much, but they always guarantee one victory point. It's a low-risk, low-reward option, especially early in the game when you're still building up your strength. Just a way to get those points ticking over.
I see. A steady but small income, as opposed to the potential windfall of a successful fortress raid. But ultimately, it's those victory points that matter. The rulebook keeps emphasizing how impressing the chieftain is the goal.
Exactly. And raiding is where a big chunk of those victory points come from as you're playing. The interesting thing is the victory points you earn from a raid aren't fixed. It all depends on your military strength during that raid.
Okay, now we're talking military strength. How's that calculated?
Well, first, you roll dice. The number of dice depends on the specific settlement you're attacking. Then you add the combat strength of all your hired crew. Each townsfolk card has a number indicating their strength. And some crew members even have special abilities that boost your military strength when raiding certain types of locations. So paying attention to who you've got on your crew is really important.
Right, because the right crew for a monastery raid might not be the best for hitting a fortress, I'm guessing.
Precisely. And to top it off, any armor you've acquired in the village adds a flat bonus to your military strength. So it's a combination of luck, your crew composition, and how well you've prepared.
Got it. Roll those dice. Add your crew strength, any bonuses from their abilities, factor in your armor, and boom, that's your total military strength.
And then you compare that to the scoring thresholds on the settlement you're raiding. Some locations have multiple tiers of victory points, depending on how strong you are.
So, a barely successful raid might only get you a couple of points, while a truly dominant one.
Could net you a whole bunch. But a successful raid isn't just about those points. You also get plunder. After figuring out your victory points, you choose one of the available sets of plunder from that location.
Ah, the spoils of war. And what kind of goodies can we expect to find?
Gold, iron, and livestock. And the rulebook makes it clear that each type of plunder has its uses. Gold and iron both contribute to your final victory point total at the end of the game.
Okay, so hoarding shiny things pays off. What about the livestock?
Livestock is interesting. You can trade it in the Longhouse, but more importantly, you need livestock to make offerings to the Chieftain.
Offerings? Tell me more about those.
Well, making offerings is another way to score victory points during the game. You go to the Longhouse, choose an offering tile, and pay the cost in resources. Usually that involves some combination of plunder and silver.
So it's a choice, right? Do I hoard my gold for those endgame points, or do I use it now to make an offering and try to get ahead in the mid-game?
Exactly. It's about timing and strategic resource management. Do you go for the immediate reward or the potential long-term gain?
Tough choices.
Yeah.
I like it. Now, we haven't talked about those Valkyrie figures yet. They seem pretty important, judging by the artwork alone.
Oh, they are. Some of the more challenging raid locations give you the chance to encounter a Valkyrie.
And that's a good thing, right? They're like on your side.
Not exactly. The rulebook states that if you choose to take a Valkyrie, you have to sacrifice one of your hired crew members.
Whoa, hold on. Sacrifice. That sounds harsh.
It is, but claiming a Valkyrie allows you to move your marker up on the Valkyrie track on the board. And at the end of the game, your position on that track can get you a significant number of victory points.
So high risk, high reward. You lose a crew member, weakening your rating strength in the short term, but you potentially gain a lot of points at the end.
It's a classic trade-off, and it's so thematic, right? It really captures that Viking idea of glory in battle, even at the cost of your warriors.
Yeah, it's not just about cold calculation, it's about embodying that Viking spirit.
Plus, some crew members have if-killed abilities that trigger when you sacrifice them for a Valkyrie. They might grant you one last action or benefit, so sometimes losing a specific crew member can actually be tactically advantageous.
That's a cool twist. Adds another layer to the decision.
So you've got this cycle of working in the village to build up your strength, then heading out to raid, trying to balance immediate victory points with long-term gains from Plunder and Valkyrie. But the raiding season doesn't last forever. The rulebook outlines 3 specific conditions that trigger the end of the game.
3 ways to know it's time to hang up the axes, huh? Let's hear them.
Well, first, the game ends if there's only one fortress raid location left with any plunder tokens on it. Fortresses are the most valuable targets, so when they're nearly depleted, it signals that the big raiding opportunities are dwindling.
Makes sense. What are the other endgame triggers?
Second, if all the Valkyrie figures have been claimed from the board. Too many Vikings seeking their favor, I suppose. And third, if all the offering tiles have been successfully made, meaning the offering draw pile is empty. Basically, players have honored the Chieftain sufficiently through their offerings.
So one of those happens, and it's last call for raiding.
Pretty much. The current player finishes their turn, and then everyone gets one final turn. A last chance to squeeze in a raid or make a crucial offering.
And after those final turns, the reckoning begins.
Yeah.
All those victory points from raids and offerings.
Aren't the final score. You also get points for your long-term investments and choices. It's not just about what you did during the game, it's also about how you positioned yourself for the end.
Okay, let's break down this endgame scoring. We know about the Valkyrie track. Your position there earns you points. What else?
Well, remember that armor you might have been diligently upgrading in the village. There's an armory track on the board, and your final armor level at the end of the game grants you bonus victory points.
So, investing in defense pays off in multiple ways. What else?
Then there are the offering tiles you collected by, trading in your plunder and silver at the Longhouse. Each tile has a victory point value printed on it, and you add all those up.
All right, I remember thinking those offering tiles were a clever way to convert resources into guaranteed endgame points.
Exactly. And then don't forget your crew. Some of the townsfolk cards you recruited give you extra victory points at the end of the game. So it's worth carefully reviewing your hired crew when you're tallying everything up.
Oh, interesting. So some crew members are better long-term investments than others, even if they don't seem as strong during the raids.
And finally, all that plunder you've managed to hoard, your gold and iron, each piece is worth 1 victory point. And for every 2 livestock you've collected, you get another point. So even those seemingly smaller gains throughout the game can really add up in the final scoring.
It all matters. Every raid, every offering, every crew member you recruit,
Yeah.
it all contributes to your final score.
You add up all those endgame bonuses to the victory points you earn during the game, and the player with the highest total wins. The rulebook even has tiebreakers. First by position on the Valkyrie track, then by armor level.
Makes sense to have those tiebreakers, especially with so many different ways to score points.
Okay, so we've covered the basics of how to play, how to score points, how the game ends, but what really struck me looking at these rules is how much strategic depth there is.
Yeah, it's not just about rolling dice and grabbing loot. There's real decision-making here.
One thing that really stood out was the fact that the resources in the main supply the silver, provisions, and plunder available at the raid locations are limited. It creates the sense of competition between players.
Absolutely. If 2 players are both trying to raid monasteries for gold, for example, that gold will run out eventually.
Exactly. And you might have to adapt your plans, maybe shift your focus to a different type of settlement, or spend more time in the village building up your crew or making offerings.
It reinforces that balance between working to build up your strength and raiding to grab those immediate rewards.
And even something as simple as choosing which plunder to take after a successful raid is a meaningful decision. Do you take the gold for those guaranteed endgame points? Or do you grab the iron to upgrade your armor and improve your chances in future raids? Or maybe you desperately need livestock to complete a valuable offering.
It all ties back to your overall strategy, right? Are you going for the short-term gains or playing the long game?
And then there's that Valkyrie dilemma. Sacrificing a crew member for those potential endgame points, it's such a thematic representation of risk and reward, of pushing your luck for a chance at greater glory.
Yeah, and don't forget those offering tiles. They're not just a way to convert resources into points. They also let you deny those resources to your opponents.
True. It adds another layer of interaction, of thinking about what your opponents might need and trying to outmaneuver them.
We talked about the worker colors earlier, but I think it's worth emphasizing how they influence your choices. Knowing which worker you'll need for specific actions adds a layer of planning to your resource gathering and engine building.
It's not just about what you want to do, it's about making sure you have the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And then there are those townsfolk cards. It's easy to focus on their combat strength for raiding, but some of them have those powerful actions you can activate from the town hall.
Like the archer who can swap an opponent's worker, messing up their plans. Or the mercenary who can demand resources from other players.
Those actions add a direct element of player interaction, of messing with your opponent's carefully laid plans. It can really shake things up.
So, taking a step back, looking at this Raiders of the North Sea rulebook, it's a surprisingly intricate system, isn't it?
It is so much more than just rolling dice and hoping for the best. There's worker placement, resource management, crew building, strategic raiding.
And it's all tied together by this theme of Viking leadership, of balancing those immediate gains with long-term goals, of taking risks and making tough choices.
And I think that's what makes it so compelling. Even though it's a game, it offers this glimpse into the kind of thinking, the strategic considerations that might have been relevant during the Viking Age.
Right. You're not just playing a game, you're almost stepping into the role of a Viking chieftain, facing those same challenges of limited resources, rival leaders, and the ever-present allure of glory.
It's more than just a set of rules. It's a framework for strategic thinking.
So here's a thought for you, listener. After hearing about all these mechanics, what kind of chieftain would you aim to be? Would you be the aggressive raider, focused on grabbing those high-value targets? Or would you be more cautious, carefully building up your strength before making your move?
Would you prioritize amassing a large crew or focusing on upgrading your armor? Would you take those risky Valkyrie encounters or play it safe?
There's no right or wrong answer. It's all about finding a strategy that suits your style and seeing how it plays out in the ever-changing landscape of Raiders of the North Sea.
And who knows, maybe some of those strategic lessons might even apply to challenges beyond the tabletop.
Thanks for diving deep into the world of Raiders of the North Sea with us. Until next time, keep those strategic minds sharp.